my name's Clarenda Hart, and I'm going to be talking about successful dog training. I'm going to be talking about feeding, chewing, potty training, and walking. First off, I'm going to be talking about feeding because it's a very big part of every dog's life. It happens 2 to 3 times a day, and they need to understand that you are giving them the food. You are the alpha of the house, and give them permission to eat. Training for food starts when you pick the dog's food bowl up. As soon as you pick it up, the dog needs to sit. You give them the sit command, and you cannot do any of the preparing food or putting it back where it needs to be until they're seated. At any point through this process of you getting food, they get up. You need to stop all action, make sure they sit. The trouble of this process comes when you are setting the food bowl down, because when you set the food bowl down and you get back up, that's when the dog usually rushes to get to the food. So you have to be very aware of how far you are from the bowl and if your dog is moving. This process will go back and forth for a while at the beginning, and eventually the dog will understand that you are giving the come command. Once you feel enough time has passed between when you got the dog to sit last and how long the food has been on the floor, then you give them the command to come or eat or whatnot. Chewing is another habit that dogs have. It's something puppies have more than adult dogs, but it's still a habit that needs to be dealt with. In this photo, my dog has a shoe, and it is not his chew toy, so it needs to be taken away. When you take the item from the dog, you need to tell them no or bad dog and take it. At the same time, or immediately after, you need to give them the dog's toy and tell them good boy or girl. This is positive reinforcement. You're taking away something as negative reinforcement, and you're giving them something else as positive reinforcement. After you give them the item, the dog will either stay there or get up. Some of them think the whole thing is just playtime. Our point is to make sure they understand that the item they had was not theirs, and the item you gave them was theirs. That's the whole goal of this. Potty training is an interesting one because it has 2 parts. The first part is you need the dog to understand that going to the bathroom outside is the goal. That is where they use the restroom, outside, not in the house. You do this most of the time by catching the dog in the act of using the bathroom in the house, or just afterwards. Once they have used the house as a potty place, you need to take the dog to the spot that they used, tell them no or bad dog, and then take them outside immediately. Once outside, you tell them outside, go potty, bathroom, and if they don't go, that's fine. If they go immediately, that's better, because then you can give them a really good positive reinforcement, because once you come inside, you can give them a treat. If they don't go right away outside, you can still give them a treat. It's just not as much positive reinforcement. The second part of potty training is recognizing when your dog needs to use the restroom. This is hard because a lot of dogs have different ways of telling you they need to use the restroom. One of my dogs will spin around in a circle really fast. The other one will headbutt the back door. I've had dogs who just run through the house. Some of them have come up to me and then bolted away and come up and bolted away. Every dog has their own quirks of how they inform you they need to use the restroom. You need to give this a positive reinforcement as well when they start doing these actions for you. You need to tell them good boy and let them out immediately. And when they come back inside, you can give them a treat or you can just give them a lot of pets. Either one works. The point is that they need to understand outside is the place. Never, in my recommendation, never use training pads in the house. Always, always, always immediately start training your dog to go outside, because the habit of using a potty pad inside is very hard to break, because the dog doesn't understand why for so long it has been okay and suddenly it is not okay to use the house as a restroom. Last thing I'm going to talk about is walking. Walking is a huge part of a dog's life because if you can't walk your dog, then you're less likely to go out with him and he's going to become a homebody and then they'll get anxiety and it just piles up. So you always need to make sure you can take your dog on a walk. Walking begins when you pick up the leash because the dog understands what the leash is. He understands what it means. As soon as you pick up the leash, you need to tell your dog to sit. And then you need to wait because you cannot hook them to the leash until they have seated. Crixus is doing a good example of this. I was waiting for him to sit before I hooked him up. On the other photo is my dog Ryu, who's waiting at the door for me to open it. This moment, this critical moment of you opening the door sets up your whole walk. Because if you open the door and the dog bolts out the door, then he's doing the walking and you are just being dragged along the entire time. But if you can open the door and have the dog sit there and wait for your command to walk, the whole walk will be so much better because your dog will be very attentive to you. So what you're going to do is you're going to get them to the door, you're going to ask them to sit, and then once they sit, you're going to open the door. And if they rush out, then you need to make them come back because you have a leash. You're going to make them come back, you're going to close the door, and you're going to ask them to sit again. Once they're seated, you're going to open the door. And the goal is to make you step out the door before they do and wait for your command to come out the side. This gets hard because it takes a while for a dog to understand what's going on. Once you have that, the ability to have the dog on one side of the door and you're on the other, whenever you feel they've waited long enough, you tell them to come and then you go on the walk. The reason this is ultimately important is because if your dog gets away from you at the beginning of the walk, it's not going to get any better. They're going to have no attention for you. They're not going to care what you're doing. They're just going to want to walk. But if you show them that you're in control and they don't get to go on a walk until you say so, the whole demeanor of the walk changes. And it just becomes so much nicer and easier. You do the same thing when you come back from a walk as well. You tell them to sit and then you open the door because they get angsty and they want to get home. It's safe. And you have to make them wait, like always. And you step in the door first and then they get to step in the door. Making them wait also helps you because it creates less crowding in the doorway and you don't get your knees knocked out. Just a disclaimer, I am not a professional trainer. These are experiences and training tips and tricks that I have gotten over the years of owning bigger dogs. If at any point, though, your dog becomes non-responsive or aggressive to any of these tips, you need to go see a professional trainer because those aggressions and non-responsives need to be kicked in the bud or else your dog will not get any better and then someday it'll just go down a terrible road. Thank you.